Good evening, and welcome friends, community members, parents, board members to this conversation about a strategic proposal for the MUSE Inter-District Magnet School at Plainfield High School. Tonight, we're going to be having a conversation about the design, the plan, the funding. I'm going to be answering some questions from individuals who have submitted questions online, and also answering some questions from community members that are here. My presentation with slides will be just under 30 minutes, and I'm going to pause right now so that our camera can zoom in specifically on the presentation, so that if individuals from home want to take a look at it and see numbers more clearly, you can do that. I would add that the entire presentation as a PDF is going to be posted on the district website following this. In the same location, you'll find the material in this video. My name is Paul Brenton. I'm superintendent of schools. This is my 5th year here in Plainfield, and I truly love being in this community. So let's talk about the catalyst for really talking about a magnet school. For those who don't know, back in 2023, we did a district-wide facility study of all of our facilities. At this time, the Board of Education made the decision to actually turn our oldest facility back over to the town of Plainfield. This was our early childhood center, which had originally been built in 1913. It was a 26,000 square foot building, which at that time was operating with a staggering capacity rate of about 24%. This means we were only using 24% of the classrooms in that building for student learning. Other classrooms are being used as meeting space or offices. When we made that decision, we studied and looked at other buildings. So there was a strategic cascade. We decommissioned the early childhood center as part of our schools. We shifted central office administration, pre-K, and our family resource center to Shepherd Hill. And we started taking a look at all the facilities in district and asked ourselves, how could we leverage and optimize the space in the district to do more for special needs programming to keep more students in district, and then also to look at places where there was great opportunity. We came up with 4 goals in Plainfield as part of that strategic study. I should tell the community all of those strategic studies, by the way, are on the Plainfield Schools website, www.plainfieldschools.org, under facilities. We talked about our desire to optimize our footprint, eliminate waste, reinvest in instruction, that is, take money that was sustaining facility space, place that money into instruction, and elevate the outcomes for all students. It was at that time that we took a look and talked about the space of Plainfield High School. Plainfield High School is one of the loveliest high schools in Eastern Connecticut, built in 2006. Now exactly 20 years old. This school was built for 800 students. It's currently operating around 500 students, which puts it a little bit over 60% capacity within the 61-62% capacity. So from this work, the team of Plainfield High School and the Plainfield Board of Ed started moving forward with the plans for a school within a school magnet school. What is a school within a school? A school within a school is a school where a host school, like Plainfield High School, opens a magnet program out of the school which offers specialized curriculum, specialized labs, and pulls in students from the region to provide a student experience where every out-of-district magnet student is a Plainfield High School student, and Plainfield High School students have a chance to enroll in the magnet school portion of Plainfield High School. Now, this model is not new or unique to Plainfield. The model that we're proposing has been proposed and implemented in several communities. The most famous of which is actually the Connecticut Interbaccalaureate Academy, which takes place at East Hartford High School. For those who are not familiar with it, it is the #1 rated public high school in the state of Connecticut. It is an integrated campus sharing facilities and extracurriculars. John Wallace Middle School has an Academy of Aerospace and Engineering, which is part of John Wallace Middle School, where there's Project Base Academy housed within an existing middle school. And the Greater Hartford Academy of the Arts and Performing Arts have dual enrollment experiences where students spend part of their day in Hartford Public Schools and part of their day at Academy of the Arts. Additionally, Bacon Academy in Colchester recently put forth and had approved by the state of Connecticut a health and physical science magnet school to the same or very similar design that we're proposing for MUSE. The strategic advantages of having a school within a school are that for the community that wants to adopt it, there is some low-risk innovation. What that means is that it allows us to pilot specialized tracks without overhauling the entire institution of Plainfield High School. It integrates new programs in this space while maintaining all of the outstanding programs we already offer. I mentioned to someone coming in that I've been singing songs from Mamma Mia probably for 3 days. All of those programs are sustained and we're adding more. It acts as a voluntary integration school drawing from diverse demographics around the community, and it allows rigorous, talented instruction with student passions, reducing dropout rates, and distinguishes Plainfield as a district which is forward-thinking and committed to specialized excellence. Now, the number one question that I've gotten from people prior to this is, can you outline a timeline? So let's talk about a timeline. Right now we are in 2026. If we submit a timeline in 2026, the State Department of Education and the Commissioner will have until this time, 2027, to make approval of the program. Once we have approval, we will be within a operations plan stage. So step one is approval of the plan. That includes approval of funding. As you're going to hear me say, there's actually 2 approvals there. One approval of funding from the legislature and one approval from the commissioner for us to charge tuition at the rate we feel we need to charge. So there's actually 2 approvals. Once that happens, we have a full year to complete the operations plan and do the recruiting. And then in year 3, we're opening the interdistrict magnet school. At the current timeline that we're talking about, the earliest this could possibly take place, given that this is 2026, would be the fall of 2028. So we're talking about something that would impact the 28-29 school year, and the earliest students that could enroll as freshmen are currently students in 6th or 7th grade at our middle school. So let me talk to you about the vision of MUSE. There is a team of individuals involving community members, involving staff at Plainfield High School, that ask the question, what would be an innovative magnet program that would be different than what's already being offered in Eastern Connecticut? What's on the horizon that's causing parents to think? The study of universal studies in expression and universal studies in creativity comes from the idea that in a world increasingly shaped by computers, artificial intelligence, and screen time, there is a need for schools to champion the irreplaceable power of the human mind and to place creativity back in students' hands. The challenge we face is that while we are in an increasingly digital age, our mission is to purposely shift students from passive digital consumers into resilient active creators. We do not merely teach arts and creation, but we study and deconstruct the very nature of what it means to create. The curriculum we're supplying to the State Department of Education at its heart has an analog distinction. What this means is that we will be, for the students who choose to enroll in the magnet portion, building cognitive endurance by having 10 of the 25 graduation credits, or approximately 40% of their academic experience, be entirely technology and screen-free. Those classrooms will not have smartboards. Those classrooms will not have students using computers. We will not have online assessments for those classes. We will be moving a mindset from the passive consumer content to having architects of original thought. We'll be moving that continuous connectivity with our cell phones or our iPhones to deep strategic work, and we're going to be suppressing that default mode we know the mind gets into when someone hops on their phone and plays Candy Crush or scrolls through TikTok for 2.5 hours, to active construction, internal reflection. This work is based on the work of 3 different individuals who've done significant work on the human mind. Our goal is to first protect constructive internal reflection by putting students into screen-free environments and activating the default mode network essential for meeting, making identity, and constructing. Cultivate deep work by putting students through a cognitive gym where we build resistance and perseverance and help students with cognitively demanding tasks which they're doing without digital aids. And finally, helping students to facilitate flow. Almost everyone here or everyone watching has experienced flow at some time in your life. The state of flow is that moment when you're working on something and everything else around you seems to go away. It's something I've encountered, I think, possibly when I've been working on an old boat and I have those other pieces and I get caught up in that work. Trying to give our students that opportunity to really build connection. At Plainfield High School, we have the portrait of a graduate. The team working on MUSE talks about what the portrait of a creative mind is. They've broken this down into 5 different elements: the disciplined dreamer, the radical observer, the constructive nonconformance, the resilient maker, and the deep synthesizer. If this is approved, you would notice I mentioned, if I go back to that initial slide, that they have a year to build this. They'll spend a year building out exactly how all of this is developed and brought forward by the students in the program. In a 4-year program, year 9 in this program is acquisition. Foundations of the Creative Mind will be a class that all 9th grade program students within the magnet school will take as they map their own brains. They learn to study the 3 concepts I just talked to you about, and they talk about what a cognitive bias is. In grades 10 and 11, the team will develop courses which ask students to function as radical observers as they accumulate their 10 screen-free credits through interdisciplinary studios, through other courses, moving from passive learning to active creation. And in grade 12, they're going to do a separate MUSE capstone, different than the capstone being done in other programs, which involves self-directed intensive period of work culminating in a professional grade performance product or portfolio. Very similar to work being done already in capstone programs. The real-world application in the creative career pipeline is something that we're hoping to build with partners if the program is approved. This will be our team of staff reaching out to seek partners that can help students both in performance and expression, in creative production, and we have some great groups that have already started talking to our team about creative production, in building digital narrative strategies, brand storing, and modern audience engagement. You'll note that I have digital storytelling in this. It is not a school without technology. It's just a school that asks students to build creative thought with technology. We recognize that we live in a world of technology. And other pieces in administration, project management, ethics. As the program develops, the MUSE Creative Collective will be a series of partnerships that help our students as they move forward in the career pathways. The existing space advantage we have in this is that we're able to operate and open a new magnet school without massive percentage of the budget consumed by mortgages, leases, or major faculty maintenance. There are some rumors online, some numbers being thrown out. I saw something by someone on Facebook saying there's a $4 million cost to this. Our application to the state involves no major capital debt for real estate. That means that we plan to open the school using existing structures at Plainfield High School. So let me respond to some questions from inter-district magnet school that have been submitted to me on finances and really talk about how revenue and budget analysis is done. So I'm going to give a rough disclaimer of this. In the state of Connecticut, there is a complex formula that I'm going to present you with, which has a very different tuition for every sending town. The numbers that I'm presenting in this analysis are both conservative in cost and high-level projections to answer questions, and their primary function is to demonstrate that this is both fiscally viable, that it will not be a burden on our town, and these are projections because we do not have any students currently enrolled, and there are no final numbers finalized. The goal of this is to prove that MUSE will be fully self-funded and doesn't place any additional burden on the town of Plainfield. So again, we have the advantage of existing space at Plainfield High School. You'll note that in the facilities study that's online, we talk about this as a school for 800 students, currently housing approximately 500 students. Let's talk about the state targets for a school of this type. If you're going to open a non-SHEF Board of Education magnet school, the law requires strict adherence to residency caps. That means that for a non-SHEF school, 75% of students are capped as the number of students from the host town. You must have at least 25% of students being out-of-district students. For the numbers that we've projected, we're targeting a 50-50 ratio. That's 50% of the students enrolled as in-district students and 50% of the students enrolled as out-of-district students. This operates well within the margin, ensures full compliance with 102641, and it protects us from any of the correction to action plans that you'll see that you may hear about in the news. So, this out-of-district formula actually comes directly from the application and directly from Appendix B. WT represents the sending towns times the weighted formula. $3,000 is our requested out-of-district tuition, and $1,300 is non-SHEF transport. So for an out-of-district student traveling to us, the base weighted formula of that town by percentage, in addition to the $3,000 that we're requesting from the Commissioner of Ed to be able to test for, to charge for tuition, in addition to the tuition money for transportation, gives us a full cost. Now, for a student who's currently enrolled in Plainfield High School, but chooses to enroll in the magnet, the state still funds that student partially, not at the rate, but for every one of those students, we get $3,060. We do not get any tuition because we don't charge ourselves tuition, we're already funding that, and the magnet school rules do not provide any magnet school funding for transportation of students within your own district, because that's already your responsibility. So, we worked with the State Department of Education on what some current numbers are and what projections were to be if this would open this year. I'm going to give you the caveat that legislation is constantly changing. There's actually legislation proposed right now, which the School and State Funding Project has on their website, which would increase these numbers. But if the school were to open today, based on those current numbers, Plainfield High School would receive approximately $3,000 for the Plainfield High School student that's currently enrolled. A student who were to enroll from Canterbury, we would receive $13,007, and a student who were to enroll from Killenby would be approximately $14,000. And again, students currently enrolled in Plainfield High School that moved over, this year, the number is $3,060. Now, here's a critical funding element that I'm going to speak to. At the start of this, I said there are really two approvals that are key for making this fiscally viable for our community. The first approval is that we get approval from the State Department of Education and the legislature, who would have to pass it, for us to receive that weighted formula amount. So for a town like Killingley, that's approximately $9,700. We would need to receive that from the state, and they would need to approve that. But the second part of this is that we need to receive approval from the Commissioner of Education to charge tuition to in the range of $2,000 to $4,000, which is what the tuition ranges are, to our neighbor towns. If we don't receive both of those approvals, the magnet school can't move forward, because we believe we need both of those approvals to truly be fiscally viable. Now, if you go online, you look at some other presentations on this, and I had a direct question on this. Someone said, can we use the numbers that Colchester published online for their magnet school? And the reality is we cannot. Colchester published a flat number of $13,315 per pupil. However, Colchester operates in the SHEF region, and we do not operate within the SHEF region, so we operate under a different formula throughout the appendix. The other piece is that when I put these numbers out and talk about operating budgets for the schools, we really have to silo that transportation money. And the reason is that $1,300 per pupil for out-of-district transfer costs is a pass-through grant that has to be spent on transportation, and we have to demonstrate that that's part of the transportation costs. So by siloing those transfer costs away in the remainder of the numbers I'm going to present, you can really see how those individual numbers fall into the funding. So let's look at some projected model revenue. So if we take a look at phase 1, which would be 100 students, and we assume, for the purpose of numbers, that 50% of those students are coming in on an average of tuition from the districts, and 50% are coming in from our own pieces, our phase 1 would be a total of $845,500 coming into revenue for 100 students. Now, of that, $65,000 instantly is a transportation pass-through. If you look at 200 students, it would be about $1.7 million of revenue coming in, and 400 students would be $3,382,000. Now, I had someone who saw this in advance, and they said, Mr. Brenton, how could you possibly say you'd have 400 students in the magnet school when you just told us Plainfield High School has the capacity for 300 additional students? And I would remind people that in this model, 50% of those students are currently Plainfield High School students. So when we're talking about 400 students, we're actually talking about 200 out-of-district students and 200 students that are dual enrolled in Plainfield High School and the magnet school coming in, and that's how we get to that 400 number. In our application to the state, the latest version, that's our cap. We're capping that at a proposal of 400 students. So we modeled two numbers. When we modeled our staffing numbers, we wanted to be sure that we had some assumptions, so we budgeted at $80,000 per certified role. At non-budgeted staff, we budgeted at $40,000. These are actually higher numbers than we use in our annual fiscal budget for open positions. While we had the standard base salaries, those did not include our other liabilities. So we allocated to the magnet school 30% fringe benefit buffer. That covers health, dental, vision, insurance. It would support pensions because there are some non-certified employees that are long time that still would have pensions. All of the employees, as happens in other dual magnet schools in the state, are Plainfield public school employees because the magnet school is a Plainfield public school. It is still part of the Plainfield school system. I will let you know that these are very conservative assumptions built for maximum financial safety. While we're projecting 80,000, our current reality is much closer to 68,000 as an average salary. This creates a $12,000 per person buffer, and when we put in 30% as a fringe benefit, I should tell you that we have a high portion of staff who don't accept any benefits and use their spouse's benefits and aren't pulling from our health insurance. However, to be conservative and to show the town this is fiscally viable and it's not going to be a burden, I assumed every employee at that higher rate and every employee taking the insurance. Because my ultimate goal is to fight that challenge that this is not mathematically viable. I want to show that opening a school like this is not only self-sustaining, but we'll have remaining operating funds in the projections to tackle other projects, support the building, and do other things through purchase services, which will ensure that there's not additional burden on Plainfield taxpayers, which is the largest question people ask. They say, we like the idea, what will it charge us? Will it be more taxes? So let's talk about what this means. In scenario one, if I just look at those certified and non-certified staff, we're looking at a projected total personnel cost of $520,000. Scenario one would be our ideal scenario for opening the school. Scenario two, phase two, would be after we take initial students in freshman, sophomore year. And remember, when we open the school, because the school is based on having students in freshmen having one curriculum, we can't open the school and bring in seniors. We have to open the school at a smaller base to bring in freshmen. At a 200 student phase two, the total personnel cost is approximately $1 million. At a 400 student full phase, fully staffed with 14 certified staff and 8 non-certified staff, that includes administration there, our total personnel cost is about $1,872,000 projected with those estimated numbers. Remember, the advantage we have in this operation is we're leveraging existing space. And by leveraging existing space, we're going to be able to drastically reduce overhead costs for the program, freeing up immense capital both for transportation. Transportation will be a heavy cost in this, and our specialized magnet curriculum, program material, professional development, and resources and opportunity for the students. We took our standard non-personnel cost breakdown and purchase services that include transportation at 52%, supplies and materials at 38% would be very high, other objects and capital at 10%, and at phase 1, with those staffing numbers, after staffing, we would have $260,500 to cover transportation purchase services, supplies and materials, and other objects. At 200 students, we would have $521,000, which, if broken up among those percentages, breaks up this way. At full phase, we would have an annual revenue to cover purchase services, transportation, supplies, materials, and other objects of $1.2 million. This is how this is financially viable for the town of Plainfield. Again, from these numbers, I'd like to remind that the law permits the Board of Education the ability to deposit 2% of the budget into a non-lapsing account. So we could, should we have additional money, use that money to address infrastructure items. We could also, if there was a desire to have additional construction to support the magnet program, we could utilize that money in a non-lapsing account to self-fund any construction the magnet school needed over time. Not initially, but over time, without needing to go out to the community for bond. At 5 years of maximum capacity, MUSE could generate over $300,000 into a reserve. I would remind the community that our reimbursement rate is 74%, and that $300,000 as a quarter of a piece would be over $1 million in construction reimbursement. The idea would be, if we were to launch the school, we could have true integration, solving what is fragmentation in Eastern Connecticut. We have many small communities looking to ask what's next with their high school. That would include intentional recruitment, universal language, trying to eliminate financial barriers. There are small schools in Connecticut where students want to have access to a 900-seat theater. There are schools in Connecticut where students want to have access to the labs that we have here. Where they don't have that, it will offer them that, and it will give a world-class magnet program for students who are interested in doing something new. Now, I had someone ask the question, would you ask all families to have their students go non-digital? And the answer is no. That's part of the idea of MUSE. We recognize that there are families in our community. We have students, I had a student just the other day who told me that their desire is to be in as many computer programming classes as possible. Plainfield High School students just took first place in coding at the state scientific competition, and they're headed to Washington, D.C. in June to compete nationally. I'm not going to ask the young men who won that competition to sit in the classroom and have 40% of their curriculum be off the computer. But for those students who want to, MUSE is an option that we're looking at moving forward for the community. I can take other questions. I know there's probably a few that people have. I would ask, if you have a question, you go to the microphone, and I'll answer those questions. And if you want to just zoom out on me for answering the questions, if we have, and if we have no other questions, we can go to those pieces. Mr. Broughton, I think you had a couple questions someone submitted to you from online that you wanted to read.
Yes, I do. Thanks.
Probably needs to be turned on. Yep. All right. You'll permit
moment to pull them up on the email here. We did have a few questions that you were so kind as to answer personally to the gentleman that wrote in on them. But I thought they were very good questions, and that they were certainly deserving of being brought to the attention of everyone else. So will there be a copy of this presentation available online? I believe you mentioned that at the beginning.
Yes, so this copy as a PDF, it's a very large file with a lot of images, so as a PDF it will be online. We're going to link it right on the front of our main page, and then ultimately we're going to have a sub-page where we can have people ask questions, and we're going to do an FAQ as this process goes forward.
Excellent. I know that you mapped out the clear timeline, the roadmap for us as well, and there was another issue that I believe I asked about at one of our previous meetings on here, is how far is too far to get into this? At what point can we just withdraw completely?
So we can make the application, and we still have the full timeline before we implement it. Until the school opens, we have the ability, even if the state has secured funding, and we have had magnet schools in the state where the state has secured funding, and given them the opportunity where the magnet school chooses not to ultimately open. Now, I would say, for the benefit of students, and for what's best for the community in planning and our partnership with the 28 districts around us that could potentially send students, what I would say is that I think we need to be committed probably a year out. So if our plan is to open in 2028 in September, I would want to be fully on board by September 2027. The reason for that is also that we are going to be spending time building this curriculum, building these classes, looking at spaces, communicating with families. And I would say that while we have longer than that to actually say no, I would advise the Board of Ed and the community that if we make this commitment, that we solidify the commitment by September of 2027.
Excellent. And the final question that was submitted is that this meeting was presented out on Parent Square, as well as put on a number of social media outlets. But I know that there are some parents, some members of the town that wouldn't necessarily get alerts on Parent Square. I know that we had an incredible turnout this evening. But will there be other opportunities for public comment, other presentations?
Yes, so there'll be other opportunities for public comments and other presentations, and we will be talking about this on social media as well as other locations as well.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Superintendent Brenton, I just have a question. This is a very sophisticated vision, and I'm just curious, looking at the data, we've talked about other meetings, you know, there's a track record there for the school that you have, school district that you have right now. And, you know, I've looked at even just the Alliance grant funding, the goals which have been set, and there's a huge gap between the words, the goal, and the reality. And my question is, why is this the right time to focus on this when there are my questions out there about, you know, the ability of the district to come together and to execute a very abstract and lofty vision when just the rudimentary curriculum of English, language arts, science, and math, you know, looking at the data, which is reported with the state, Plainfield School District's status as an Alliance School District, which places it within the whole state in the lowest performing school districts. There's like, I think, 38. So why is this the right time to execute or attempt to execute a vision like this when some may wonder if, you know, if the district has proven itself capable of succeeding?
I think that's an interesting question. I would respond to it in two different factors. First and foremost is I would say that we have a unique opportunity right now in the state of Connecticut to make application at this time because the state's accepting applications on new magnet schools. I think if we look at the movement of education, not just in Plainfield, but across the state and across the country, we're seeing parents push for school choice, for other opportunities, for other options, especially at the secondary level. And we believe that this program speaks to a certain sect of individuals, sect is probably even the wrong word, a group of things that students and parents desire, and we believe that this meets their need. The other thing that we know is that communities that have brought in school-within-school magnets have actually raised the achievement of all students, because one of the things that this allows them to do is to have students that are Plainfield High School students take some of the electives and other courses offered in the MUSE curriculum if they have those seats. And MUSE students have the ability to come in and take other courses. When we take a look at achievement, specifically if you look at our elementary schools have been outpacing most of Eastern Connecticut and the Alliance schools, but if you look at our middle and high school, you'll see that those numbers start to fall behind. And I think that when we're looking at strategies for those pieces, you'll see that that's the case. Over the last 5 years, every one of our elementary schools has achieved a school of distinction for some facet from the State Department of Education. Last year, we really saw scores drop at one of the 3 elementary schools, that was Shepherd Hill, which saw some drops based on the significant changes at Shepherd Hill. If you remember last year in the academic year, we moved our pre-K to Shepherd Hill, we moved our central office to Shepherd Hill, we moved our family resource to Shepherd Hill, and we had brand new principals in at Shepherd Hill. But if you look at our numbers now and our projections, and we always say in the district that your numbers should never be a surprise, our data looks much, much better. And if you look at our school climate numbers, which are going to be presented at the Board of Education this next Wednesday, which are in there, the changes that the schools have made specifically with the school resource officer and the security guards and the testimony people are going to provide really talks to the changes that have occurred in climate. So why now? I think it's always time to be innovative, and I think that this is an opportunity to have it. And more so, I think that we're moving to a time where you're going to see more school choice everywhere across the country. And you hear that from the U.S. Department of Education, and this is our goal in Plainfield to be out ahead of it.
Hi, Howard Gagnon. I have a couple questions on the integration of the students.
Sure.
Now, when the MUSE students come and they're taking an analog courses or whatever, they're going to be integrated into English, math, history classes that already exist, or are there going to be extra classes on that? And also, our own students, if they want to take art classes that are set for MUSE, are they going to be offered other classes in that? And also, our art programs right now, I believe this is mostly for arts, correct?
No, it's not mostly for arts. I think that's a misconception.
Okay.
So let me answer all 3 questions, and I appreciate the questions, Art.
Okay.
So I think there's a perception. So prior to my arrival, there was discussion of Plainfield High School partnering with a regional art school and having the art school do some work here. I think for that reason there's discussion of this as a school of arts, but it's not a school of arts. In fact, when we made our first application to the state of Connecticut, we're actually on application 4 right now, meaning we haven't fully applied, but we show them where we are in our application, we ask for feedback, they meet with us, we bring it back to the team of people working on it, we make changes in other pieces. One of their pieces of feedback was that they don't allow magnet schools to compete with other regional magnet schools. So we couldn't open an art school if we wanted to. So this school is designed the way it's designed because we really wanted to focus on creativity. And there will be MUSE courses that are analog courses that are designed for MUSE. So if we take a look at the 9th grade course on the creativity in the human mind, that'll be an analog course. That'll be the first course students take. That's a course for the magnet school students. If you're in the magnet school, you'll take that course. If you look at the capstone course, the MUSE capstone course, that would be a MUSE capstone course. Those would not be courses that Plainfield High School students that were not in MUSE would have access to. In part because of staffing and students and the need to have, if let's say you had, in the final model, you have 100 students in your freshman class, you're offering sections of 20 students in that, there wouldn't actually be any open seats in that class for other students to take it. But there will be other courses that are offered if there's space based on schedule and based on seniority that students may have a chance to come into. The proposal put forward to the state, the latest proposal, and I'll put that online as well, has some concepts of what those courses are, but they haven't been developed, the curriculum hasn't been fleshed out. Those are put there for the state to give an example of what the team thinks those courses may be. If a student in MUSE, just as in East Hartford and in other places, is interested, let's say that there's a particular course here on debate that someone really wants to take. We have a very, very popular debate and contemporary issues courses here. Those are Plainfield High School courses. Those go to Plainfield High School students first. But if there's available seats and a student in MUSE wanted to try to register for that course, which would be a non-MUSE course, that would go based on seniority. You would go to an upperclassman first or that, but they may not get in. The same would be the case for the other pieces, and that's how many of those courses work.
So then our students do come first?
Yes.
Over the MUSE students?
Absolutely.
Okay, so could you explain then, I know it's psychologically based, the program, right, to reach the mind of the students, the creative mind, correct? Psychologically based?
Yes, I'm not disagreeing with that one.
Okay. Are school psychologists going to be involved in this? Or are teachers going to get extra training on these items?
So part of the design, if we go back into these pieces and we talk about purchase services and other pieces, part of that purchase service line is in fact professional development for staff and development of that curriculum.
New staff? Or
new staff,
okay.
Staff that's teaching it. Or if we had a teacher, if Mrs. Hutchinson sitting to my right said, you know, I really want to be teaching the creative mind courses, I'm going to reapply. I see people shaking their heads no, someone hypothetically could do that. I would say though, everything at that line is hypothetical at this point because the first step is state approving the concept and approving the funding. And from there we submit, we have a full year, if I go back to this timeline.
I'm trying to get a grasp on the concept.
Sure.
Yeah, I thought it was the document that I got, the application must be an old one, it's from November 24. Is that old?
That's old.
That's old. And that was mostly arts.
Yep.
So I was thinking our art program is pretty decimated. You would have to build that up.
That's an old application.
Right, okay. Are you still looking at like 3 to 4 STEM classes per grade? I think that was in the curriculum part. There was like 14.
Nope, this is a good question.
STEM classes
Give me 30 seconds to pull this up.
Magnet classes.
I don't want to lose.
2 were STEM.
I don't want to lose here, and I've got to be sure I don't pull up anything confidential.
The funding, you pretty much explained that. I don't have any questions on that. So that's good.
Looking for draft 4. So within draft 4, and I will put this online, we're going to be talking about this in our upcoming board meeting. Everything that you see in blue is probably things you've seen, but everything purple has been changed within the last 3 drafts. So you'll notice there's a lot of purple here, which is probably different than the initial piece that you looked at.
No, I saw purple.
Oh, you saw purple? All right. So when you're looking at these pieces, they talk about what those classes are,
Yeah.
and then the latest draft of the
Right
programming has these pieces. So when you say
There's
STEM,
like 14 magnet. No, I didn't mean STEM. I meant magnet courses.
yes,
I
the
think
magnet
two
courses.
of them being STEM, but
Correct.
There's like 13 or 14 magnet courses.
Yes.
So that's why I'm trying to figure out is what these magnet courses are. I thought they were arts program
Nope,
courses.
nope, these
So
are-
they could be.
These are courses designed, so I'll go back to then this, and I'll look here. So these are in grades 10 and 11, classes of creation where students are doing construction and building things. So there's classes designed among radical observation, there's classes designed around problem solving. Those are the courses that the staff have designed.
Okay, I remember reading those.
Yeah.
Now I'll go back to that.
It's a good question, though. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's why I was asking. I had a question about the demographics of the student body. I'm looking at a report from the School and State Finance Project. They do policy briefs, and they're just referencing data from the 2023-2024 school year, looking at the ratios of special education students, multilingual learners, economic disadvantage, BPOC, and white students. And I'm just looking at, and I'm just wondering if this is going to play a role in the admissions and the diversity that you're seeking within the student body. It looks like right now with magnet schools in Connecticut, they're citing 81% identifying as BPOC, 19% white, and then special education and multilingual learners around 15%, and economically disadvantaged 24%. So, you know, it seems like you're trying to tap into, less traditional learners who might need a more versatile curriculum. I'm just curious.
I wouldn't say that, no.
No.
I would say that that's not accurate.
Okay. Are you going to be reaching out to underserved communities and underserved populations as part of the admissions process for the vision you have for this magnet school?
When you did your research, did you take a look at the numbers in the town of Plainfield?
I'm familiar with the demographics of the town of Plainfield.
In the town of Plainfield, what percentage of our students are free and reduced lunch or economically disadvantaged?
It's what is it, over 50%? It's pretty significant.
It's over 50%.
Yeah.
So when we take a look at the demographics of the community, there are no quotas that are set for where things are. In many ways, we're reaching out to all the communities around us. Some of the communities that find this most appealing are the communities where, and I don't want to give a name, but where they're sending to a very small high school, or they're looking for another option of high schools for their students, meaning that they have a choice high school, but this is for magnet schools, are for students who see a program, very much like the arts, or they see the program at QVMC, or they see a STEM program like Charles Barrows, and a student in a family says, I could go to the traditional high school and do the traditional pieces, but I want more computer science. I want more art. We have students from Plainfield that go to the Arts of the Capitol Theater because they want dance, and that's the only place dance is offered. Conversely, we have students who stay here because we do bigger musicals. So the idea is to offer something different that's not being offered anywhere else, and to really develop a unique curriculum that's appealing to students. At the end of the day, I will say this, and I think Art had a really good question. The success of this program will only be as good, Art, as those classes. If those classes are good, and students are engaged and they want to come, this works. So to your question, Jason, about do we have the capacity? If we can do that and do that well, then the answer is yes.
And there's going to be a blind admissions process, though, where demographics...
So the state actually sets up the lottery and has some control over those pieces. So there's other guidelines. I will in a Q&A answer that question.
Sure.
I'm hesitant to answer it aloud right now, because if I make a mistake, I'm certain someone on Facebook will call me on it.
Thank you, Superintendent Brenton.
Again, my goal tonight was to provide an outline, answer some questions. My primary goal was to show how this is fiscally viable, because that was the largest question. I will say, final and closing, that there is no guarantee that MUSE is happening. We have to have approval from the State Department of Education. We have to have approval from the legislature. It has to be funded. And ultimately, and I will go back to one more slide. On the slide where we talk about funding, for this to be a viable program, that number there, that tuition number, our ability to charge out-of-district tuition, has to be approved by Dr. Russell Tucker, the Commissioner of Education, and that's an approval that we need. So when we talk about that process, I'm going to be advocating, should the initial program get approved, for all that funding to get approved and for it to move forward. After those 2 steps move forward, we'll start building the program. Lots of steps. This is a good time to ask questions. Please ask your questions. And if you have more questions and you're a member of the community, you can email questions to Tammy, Tammy, at plainfieldschools.org. She is the Board of Education's secretary. It's easiest if all questions come directly to the board's secretary, and she'll get them to the right people, and we'll try to get them back to you as fast as possible. Thank you everyone who came out tonight. This will be online. And have a safe drive home and have a great holiday weekend. As a reminder, tomorrow is a holiday. Plainfield schools are closed this Friday. Take care.